The pen felt heavier than it should have. Its sleek black body rested between my fingers, a tool so simple yet suddenly so burdensome. The weight of it wasn't just in the metal, it was in the meaning. In the paper before me. In the cold, clinical language of the document that lay waiting for my signature. Prenuptial agreement. The words were bold, stark, unfeeling. Across the table, Ethan, my fiancé of 3 years, my partner of 7, tapped his fingers against the polished wood. His expression was carefully composed, the same steady gaze I had once trusted without question. But today, there was something different. Something unreadable. "It's just a precaution, Lori," he said smoothly, voice even, practiced. "You understand, right? Just in case. Just in case." I forced a smile, though my stomach twisted. "Sure," I murmured, lifting the pen. "Just a backup plan." A backup plan for what, exactly? For years, Ethan and I had been inseparable. We built our lives together, scraped through the broke college years in a tiny apartment, celebrated every small victory as if it were a milestone. He had held me when I cried over job rejections, kissed me breathless when I finally landed my first promotion. We had dreamt of our future as a team. And now, standing on the edge of that future, he was asking me to sign this? The air in the room felt heavier, pressing against my chest. The pen hovered just above the line, ink waiting to cement my agreement. My compliance. My acceptance that the man I loved was planning for a life without me. I swallowed hard. "Don't be emotional. Be smart." With a deep breath, I signed. The ink bled smoothly across the paper, my name sealing the deal in bold, unwavering strokes. Ethan exhaled, a quiet sound of relief. He reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "Thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand." I smiled. A small, empty thing. Because what Ethan didn't know was that I had already seen his secret savings account. The discovery wasn't intentional. I wasn't searching for secrets or digging for betrayals. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves when you least expect them, slipping through the cracks like whispers in the dark. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind where the world moves just a little slower. Ethan had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he took a call in the other room. Nothing unusual. But as I walked by, my eyes flickered to the screen, an email notification, the subject line stark and undeniable, confirmation, account transfer complete. My heart stuttered. Ethan and I shared everything, our home, our dreams, our future. But not our bank accounts. And certainly not secret ones. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach as I hesitated, fingers hovering over the trackpad. Curiosity warred with caution. But some things, once seen, cannot be unseen. With a deep breath, I clicked. The email was from a private financial institution I didn't recognize. The balance was staggering, 6 figures, quietly siphoned away in steady deposits over the past 2 years. 2 years. I blinked, struggling to process. Ethan wasn't just planning for a future without me. He had been preparing for it. A chill ran down my spine. My mind raced through every conversation we'd had about money, his reassurances, his easy smiles. "Of course, we're in this together. You know I'd never hide anything from you." Lies, all of it. Carefully crafted, masterfully delivered. Footsteps. Ethan's voice, still laced with laughter from his call. I slammed the laptop shut just as he stepped into the kitchen, eyes flicking to me with a warmth I now knew was hollow. "Hey, babe," he said, leaning down to press a kiss to my forehead. I forced a smile, stomach twisting as his lips lingered against my skin. I wanted to ask him, to shove the truth in his face and demand answers. Why? Who are you saving for? What are you planning? But instead, I swallowed the words like poison and smiled. Because confrontation wouldn't give me control. And right now, control was the only thing I had left. Ethan had secrets. But now? So did I. The silence between us stretched, thick and suffocating. It wasn't the comfortable kind, the kind that settles between two people who know each other so well that words are unnecessary. No, this silence was different. It was heavy with unspoken truths, with the weight of something neither of us was willing to name. I sat across from Ethan at the dinner table, pushing my food around my plate, my mind a battlefield of questions. I had discovered his secret, but he didn't know that yet. And as I watched him, his easy smile, the way he reached for his glass of wine without a second thought, I realized something chilling. He was good at this. At deception. At living two lives. But so was I. The past few days had been a blur of quiet observation. I had searched through emails, bank statements, and phone logs, each discovery chipping away at the image of the man I thought I knew. He had been planning something for months, maybe even years. Transferring money, setting up accounts in places I had never heard of. Preparing for an exit. But what kind of exit? I needed to know. So I played along. I laughed at his jokes, kissed him goodnight, held his hand when we walked through the city. If he was pretending, then I could pretend too. Then, one night, I followed him. He had told me he was meeting an old friend for drinks. It was the perfect excuse, believable, harmless. But I knew better. I waited 10 minutes after he left, then grabbed my coat and slipped out the door. My heart pounded as I kept my distance, weaving through the streets, staying just far enough behind that he wouldn't notice me. He turned a corner, heading toward a hotel. Not a bar, a hotel. My breath hitched. I watched as he stepped inside, his posture easy, practiced. He wasn't hesitant. He wasn't nervous. He had done this before. I moved closer, my pulse a hammer against my ribs. Through the glass doors, I saw him approach the front desk. The receptionist greeted him with familiarity, handed him a keycard. And then, he walked toward the elevators. Alone. I waited, counting the seconds. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped inside. The receptionist barely glanced at me, too busy with her computer screen. I walked past, my hands clenched into fists, and headed for the stairs. I climbed slowly, carefully, my ears straining for any sound. When I reached the floor, I moved toward the hallway, my breath shallow. Room numbers blurred past me. And then I saw him. Standing outside a door. Knocking once, twice. And then, she answered. A woman. Tall, elegant, with dark eyes that flickered with something I couldn't quite place. Recognition. Familiarity. She smiled at him, stepping aside to let him in. The door clicked shut behind them. I stood frozen, my body cold and numb. I had followed him here, desperate for answers. But now that I had them, now that the truth stood just feet away, I felt nothing but emptiness. Ethan had secrets. But now, so did I. The city pulsed with a quiet energy as I stepped out of the cab, my heels clicking against the pavement. The air was thick with the scent of rain, a promise hanging low in the sky. I pulled my coat tighter around my frame and took a steadying breath. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for, dreading, preparing for. Across the street stood the hotel, pristine, elegant, and far too expensive for casual visits. Yet here I was, watching as the golden glow of the chandeliers spilled onto the marble floors inside. My hands trembled slightly as I checked my phone. No new messages. No last-minute explanations. Just the cold, hard silence that had become far too familiar in the past few weeks. I had followed Ethan before. I had seen him enter this very building. I had seen him disappear behind those doors with that woman, the one with dark eyes and an effortless grace. I had watched from the shadows as my world unraveled. But I hadn't confronted him. Not yet. Because confronting a liar wasn't enough. I needed proof. I needed him to face his own betrayal before he could talk his way out of it. So tonight, I wasn't just watching. Tonight, I was stepping inside. The doorman gave me a polite nod as I passed through the entrance, the scent of expensive cologne and polished wood invading my senses. My heart pounded as I approached the front desk, my fingers gripping the strap of my bag to steady myself. "Good evening, miss. How may I assist you?" The receptionist's voice was smooth, professional. I forced a smile. "I believe my husband checked in earlier. Ethan Caldwell." The receptionist hesitated, glancing at the screen before looking back at me. "I'm sorry, but I can't disclose guest information." I expected that. Hotels were discreet. They were built on secrets. But I had come prepared. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. I understand. But you see, he left his wallet at home. And I need to get it to him before his meeting. I held up the wallet I had brought, a backup he always left in the car. The receptionist's gaze flickered to it before hesitating again. Then, as if deciding I was harmless enough, she nodded. Mr. Caldwell is in suite 814, she said quietly. Would you like me to ring him? I shook my head. No, thank you. I'd rather surprise him. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but I swallowed it down and made my way to the elevator. The ride up felt eternal, each ding of the passing floors echoing in my ears. When the doors finally slid open, I stepped into the hallway, my breath shallow. 814 was at the end of the corridor. The door stood there, closed and unassuming, as if it held nothing more than an ordinary night's stay. But I knew better. I reached into my bag, fingers brushing against the cool metal of the keycard I had lifted from Ethan's jacket earlier that evening. He had been careless, distracted. He hadn't even noticed. Sliding the card into the reader, I held my breath as the lock beeped open. The door clicked, and I pushed it slowly, stepping inside. The suite was dimly lit, the city lights casting a soft glow through the massive windows. A jacket lay draped over a chair, a glass of whiskey half-finished on the coffee table. And then, from the adjoining bedroom, I heard them. Voices. Low, intimate. I moved forward, the plush carpet muffling my steps. The door to the bedroom was slightly ajar, revealing just enough. My pulse roared in my ears as I saw them, Ethan, his back turned to me, and her, the woman who had unknowingly unraveled everything I had believed about my marriage. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her dark eyes locked onto his. And then, she spoke. You know you can't keep this up much longer, she said, her voice calm, knowing. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. I know, he muttered. But she doesn't suspect anything yet. I stiffened. They were talking about me. The woman tilted her head, studying him. Are you sure? She asked. Because she's smart, Ethan. If she hasn't figured it out yet, she will soon. He sighed, running a hand over his face. I've been careful. 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 The word echoed in my mind, twisting into something sharp and painful. He had been careful. He had lied so effortlessly, so smoothly. And all the while I had been waiting, watching, hoping for a truth that would never come. I stepped back, my breath shaky. The walls of the suite felt like they were closing in, pressing against me with the weight of every deception, every whispered lie. And yet I wasn't shattered. No, not yet. Because now I had what I needed. I turned, slipping out as quietly as I had come, the keycard still clutched in my hand. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The night was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the occasional rustling of leaves. Amanda sat on the edge of her bed, her fingers tightening around the edge of the blanket. Her mind was a storm of thoughts, each one more alarming than the last. She had spent the entire day piecing together fragments of memories, whispers from the past that had once seemed insignificant. But now, in the stillness of the night, they formed a picture too disturbing to ignore. It had started with a simple conversation over coffee with Mira. They had been reminiscing about their teenage years, laughing at old stories, when Mira had mentioned something odd. Do you remember that summer? The one where Diana suddenly disappeared for 2 weeks and no one could reach her. Amanda's laughter had faded instantly. Diana had never spoken about that time, brushing it off with vague excuses about family matters. But Mira's words planted a seed of doubt in Amanda's mind. And now, she couldn't stop digging. She had gone through old photographs, reread journals, and even made a few discreet calls. Each step led her closer to something she wasn't sure she wanted to uncover. Mason, ever the protective brother, had always been secretive about their family's past. And Diana had been the heart of the mystery, the one who always seemed to know more than she let on. Amanda pulled out the worn-out journal she had found earlier that evening. It belonged to Diana. The pages were filled with scribbled thoughts, scattered words that hinted at something deeper. But it was one particular entry that sent shivers down Amanda's spine. They watch. Always watching. If I speak, everything unravels. The night of the storm, it wasn't an accident. The truth is buried, but not forever. Someone will dig it up. And when they do, God help us all. A lump formed in Amanda's throat. The night of the storm. She remembered it well, the night their lives had changed forever. Their parents' tragic accident, the phone call that shattered their world. But what if it wasn't an accident? What if Diana had known something? Had she been silenced? Was this why she had disappeared? The walls of the house suddenly felt suffocating. She needed answers. She grabbed her coat and stepped outside, the cold air hitting her face like a warning. She should have waited until morning, but patience had never been her strong suit. She needed to see Mason. As she drove through the empty streets, memories flooded back. Mason's strange reactions whenever she asked about their parents' accident, the way Diana had always changed the subject, and Mira's cryptic remark, "Some truths are better left buried." Amanda tightened her grip on the steering wheel. No, not this time. She deserved to know the truth. When she reached Mason's house, she hesitated for only a second before knocking. The door opened almost immediately, as if he had been expecting her. His eyes, dark and unreadable, studied her. "Amanda," he said calmly, "it's late." "What's wrong?" She stepped inside, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. "I found Diana's journal, and I need you to tell me what really happened that night." Mason's expression didn't change, but the air around them grew heavier. He shut the door, locking it behind him. And in that moment, Amanda knew she was about to hear a truth that would change everything.